in the Orphe Jean house, which so often echoed with the solemn sound of distance. The air that afternoon was thick with invisible threads of suspicion, exhaustion, and unease. This space was never meant for intimate conversations, let alone for those who felt adrift. And perhaps it was this very fact that gave Leslie a reason to pour out all her grievances onto Haley, the woman she believed also had no true place among the people here. Leslie, her voice tinged with unmistakable bitterness, spilled complaint after complaint into the void, as if someone simply had to hear them, while Haley, both curious and guarded, found herself unable to leave the room, drawn in by the sense she was hearing truths that everyone else had long tried to avoid. What they shared was not understanding, but the fate of being outsiders in the powerful Dupree family, each feeling like a castaway, adrift and ignored. After the violent loss of control on the Orphe Jean dance floor, Nicole was instantly swept up in a maelstrom of fear, shame, and confusion over the consequences she had just set in motion. At first, her survival instinct pushed her to cover up what happened, trying to build a flawless facade as she always did, pretending it was merely a petty scuffle between two women whose long-standing grievances had finally erupted. She reminded herself that if no one spoke up and there was no hard evidence, everything would quietly sink into the usual waves of trivial scandals that forever churned in the world of the wealthy. Yet Nicole could not fully control the situation, for her outburst had happened in front of many witnesses, staff, passers-by, and, most notably, Ted. This was not just a personal conflict, but a spark that, if exploited, could burn down everything Nicole had spent her life building. Nicole chose silence, pretending nothing serious had happened, hoping for the tacit complicity of those present or the faded loyalty of certain figures in the upper echelons to shield her from the coming media storm. But in the shadowy web of relationships that surrounded her, there was always someone waiting to profit from any misstep. The first to seize upon this secret was Leslie. Though a direct victim, Leslie did not rush to accuse or make a scene, for she understood all too well that a well-timed secret could be far more valuable than a hasty accusation. Quietly, Leslie began gathering evidence, perhaps a security camera video, the testimonies of a few employees, faint bruises on her neck, and countless small details she carefully noted. She knew that as long as Nicole remained afraid, desperate to protect her reputation, Leslie's power over her would only grow. With a practical and cunning nature, Leslie could keep this as a trump card, using it to manipulate Nicole later, keeping her on edge and ready to concede in any negotiation. But Leslie was not the only one with an agenda. On the periphery, Haley, though not actively recording the moment, sensed something was wrong and began watching more closely, feeling the tremors of a larger upheaval approaching the Dupree family. If pushed to the edge, Haley could easily wield the secret as leverage to protect herself against the likes of Nicole or Leslie. Supporting characters, long seen as mere shadows, sometimes hold the true balance of power, and for Nicole, the real danger came from those she least expected. As for Ted, who had witnessed everything, he did not take Nicole's side. His lack of trust only deepened the wounds in his wife's heart. In Nicole's mind, his betrayal hurt more than any insult or blow from Leslie. Driven to weakness, Nicole began to feel suffocated in her own home. She now faced an impossible choice: to confront the consequences, apologize publicly, and submit to the judgment of the law and public opinion, or to continue hiding, risking exposure and manipulation in the future. But, as a woman long accustomed to the unspoken rules of the elite, public confession did not come easily. Nicole knew that admitting the truth and letting it reach the media would mean not only losing her reputation but possibly jeopardizing her family's future, her career, and the child she had just discovered she was carrying. Amid the chaos, Nicole was stunned to realize she was pregnant. This revelation came at her loneliest, most desperate moment, both a fragile hope and a source of unexpected strength. She knew that this child's arrival could change everything, between forgiveness, struggle, and letting go. Nicole told no one of the pregnancy, guarding it as a sacred secret to both protect herself and gauge Ted and Leslie's responses in the coming days. In countless sleepless nights, Nicole weighed every possible scenario. If she revealed the pregnancy, would Ted recognize the value of family and return, or would he continue to choose Leslie or avoid responsibility? If she forgave Ted, would the wounds of betrayal ever truly heal, or would they fester forever in their marriage? Yet, if she chose to hide her pregnancy, waiting for a swift divorce, she would face single motherhood in the eye of a public storm, losing not only her marriage but also the protection once provided by the Dupree family. These endless deliberations left Nicole more isolated than ever. Each day another cycle of fear, anger, pain, and the survival instinct of an experienced woman. The rift with Ted only widened as Nicole realized he was no longer her anchor, no longer the man who would stand by her under any circumstance. Every instance of Ted's evasion, indifference, or coldness only strengthened Nicole's resolve that she could not go on sacrificing for a man who had stopped believing in her. At times, she nearly blurted out the truth about the baby, longing for a miracle, for Ted to change, to understand and love her as in the beginning. But looking into Ted's cold, suspicious eyes, Nicole held back, deciding to keep the secret for herself, a final affirmation of her dignity and independence. The storm was far from over as Leslie quietly sought ways to get closer to Ted, using Nicole's attack as a covert weapon to reclaim her status and even plot a more subtle revenge. Leslie understood that as long as Nicole remained weak and secretive, she would wield the power to manipulate not just Nicole but the entire web of relationships, finances, and reputations circling the Dupree family. She might not rush to expose everything but would surely remind Nicole of her power, turning every day of her rival's life into a string of anxiety, exhaustion, and endless worry. In the stifling atmosphere of the house, even the smallest glance or casual conversation was enough to keep Nicole on edge. She no longer felt safe with anyone, from Ted to Leslie to her once most trusted friends. The only hope that remained was the small life growing inside her, a miracle emerging from the wreckage of betrayal, hatred, and loneliness. Nicole promised herself that whatever she chose, she would protect her child at all costs, never letting it be drawn into the dark schemes of the adults around them. As time passed, Nicole's decision became clearer. She chose to keep her pregnancy a secret and began preparing for a new life, without Ted, without the bonds of a husband who no longer trusted her, and without any illusions of a perfect family. She organized her paperwork, assets, and quietly planned her withdrawal without anyone knowing. In those rare moments when she looked into the mirror, she saw a woman who had grown stronger, matured through old wounds and the pain others had caused. The media scandal, though still looming, no longer frightened Nicole as before. She understood that if Leslie or anyone else ever decided to bring everything into the light, she would have nothing left to lose but her reputation, something always fragile in this world of pretense. The coming child was not only a new beginning but a shield to protect her from the malice around her. Nicole accepted that sometimes true strength was not in facing everything head-on, but in knowing when to let go of what has become unbearable and preparing to protect her own future and that of her unborn child. In the stillness of midnight, Nicole gently placed her hand on her belly, feeling the faint beat of a new life, and for the first time in months, she found peace. Outside, the storm still raged, but within her a new strength had formed, one that no one could manipulate, threaten, or extinguish. Nicole knew that challenges still lay ahead, but this time, she would be the one to decide her own destiny. Leslie never hesitated to remind everyone of her isolation, while Haley, never truly belonging, quietly absorbed everything, wondering if this fragile empathy might be the bridge to deeper secrets in this opulent house. But the peace was always artificial at Orphe Jean, awaiting only a spark to erupt into a storm. The moment Nicole appeared, all masks dropped. Sarcasm, challenge, and jealousy swelled into a violent wave, crushing any remaining goodwill among them. Leslie, never one for restraint, immediately dragged Kat, her perennial thorn, into the argument, unashamedly belittling and attacking her. Nicole tried to stay calm, But beneath her composed exterior simmered a storm awakened by unhealed wounds. The attacks on Kat were only the spark. What truly shattered Nicole was when Leslie, her gaze cold and sharp, dug up the past between Nicole and Ted, reminding her of Ted's betrayals, the months and years reduced to a joke in another's eyes. At this point, reason was gone, and Nicole lunged at Leslie, her pent-up resentment erupting in violence before the stunned onlookers. This was not merely the climax of a petty quarrel, but a crack extending from years past. Ted arrived just in time to pull Nicole away from Leslie, but his presence only deepened the tragedy. Nicole had nothing left to hold on to, no model wife image, nothing but the ruins inside herself. She left the room, leaving Ted with Leslie, two people who had once shared a painful secret she could never forget. Meanwhile, Leslie, sly and weary, asked Ted to take her home, using health as an excuse, but in truth wanting to stretch her hold on Ted by whatever thin strands of memory and guilt remained. Outside, Haley was still undecided about which side to take or whether to protect the secrets she had just discovered. When Leslie offhandedly remarked about the Dupree sisters being a headache, there was a fleeting bond between them, a tacit admission that all unrest stemmed from the most powerful people in the house. Haley was not one for scheming or manipulation. She was simply an outsider drawn into the vortex, while Leslie, ever cunning, continually coaxed Haley to join her against their common enemy. Internal conflicts surfaced. Haley loved the Dupree family but refused to be part of their schemes, while Leslie didn't hesitate to accuse Haley of using her as a stepping stone into the world of the rich. Tensions peaked when Haley left for a doctor's appointment, leaving Nicole to face Leslie once again, this time in a small diner. Now nothing was hidden. All truths were laid bare, cold and exposed. Nicole demanded Leslie confess to firing Laura, an act that convinced Nicole Leslie was trying to manipulate every aspect of her life, from work to family. Leslie denied every accusation, asserting that all were circumstantial and that no one could truly pin anything on her. To prove her innocence, Leslie shamelessly evoked old memories with Ted, memories that, for Nicole, were knives twisting deeper into her wounds. Leslie stressed that while Nicole was enduring hormone treatments and grieving lost pregnancies, she and Ted were living out their own adventures, memories still embodied in the dresses and keepsakes scattered through Leslie's home. Overwhelmed by the relentless assault, Nicole began to unravel. She questioned whether to keep holding on to her secrets, once the bulwark of her family's reputation, or to finally face everything, revealing the truth to Ted and Leslie alike. The truth was not just about what happened between Ted and Leslie, but about Nicole herself, her feelings of betrayal, of being cast aside in her own marriage, of silent pain endured alone. Caught between impossible choices, Nicole realized she could trust no one but herself, especially when everyone around her seemed to hide their true motives. But Nicole's tragedy was not just her helplessness in the face of her husband's past, but her perpetual doubt about Ted's loyalty and love. Though Ted made many promises, every time his past with Leslie resurfaced, Nicole's wounds reopened. She felt betrayed not only by her husband but also by her once most trusted friend, the one who had seen her through many storms only to stab her in the back. This pain and confusion pushed Nicole into a defensive stance, ready to attack anyone who threatened her place in family and society. Driven to the brink, Nicole's actions lost all reason. In her fear of losing everything, from family happiness to social standing, she risked exposing all the secrets she had tried so hard to keep. If Ted or Leslie got hold of them, her carefully built life could collapse in an instant. Every move now felt like a gamble where any choice could mean loss. Nicole knew the truth about the Dupree family's relationships was not just a private matter, but a dangerous weapon in the hands of anyone who knew how to use it. She watched every word, every gesture, terrified that even a small slip could give Leslie or Ted the upper hand, forcing her into an inescapable scandal. Meanwhile, Leslie never stopped scheming, always ready to use any information about Nicole as leverage. She saw her memories with Ted not just as past victories, but as weapons to taunt and dominate Nicole in every encounter. Haley, with the best intentions, unwittingly became a pawn in the psychological game between these ambitious women. She could not fully comprehend the tangled relationships within the Dupree family, nor see how deeply she was being drawn into a conflict where no one would truly win. As night fell over Orphe Jean, it seemed as though things had calmed after the storm, but in reality, it was only the beginning of a new cycle of suspicion, lies, and calculation. Nicole sat quietly in her room, her gaze lost in the distance, searching for some remnant of peace. All she found was the echo of the past and never-ending schemes. She knew she could never return to the days of calm, nor retreat now that enemies were at her door and every secret threatened to come to light. In her fitful sleep, Nicole dreamed of Leslie and Ted, sometimes close, sometimes distant, always enigmas she could never solve. She woke with a start, keenly feeling the loneliness and anxiety threaded through every breath. Tonight, once again, she would face her fears alone, wondering whether the truth would set her free or plunge her further into despair. Somewhere out there, Leslie was making new plans, and Haley still stood on the line between good and evil, not knowing what role she would play in the ongoing story of the Dupree family, where secrets never truly end.